Hello and welcome to Climate Watch. I'm Fei Fei. In a recent move, China is taking another major step to embed the green transition across its economy. Last week, the Ministry of Commerce released a new guideline on expanding green trade, a document that goes far beyond solar panels or electric vehicles. It lays out a broader vision that touches every part of the trade ecosystem, from supply chains and green finance to links with carbon markets and national carbon footprint systems. The policy also encourages the development of new trade models, such as remanufactured products, and calls for better use of free trade agreements to deepen international cooperation in low-carbon industries. In China's 15th five-year plan, the green transition is not treated as a burden, but as a key engine of growth, woven directly into the country's economic strategy. In many ways, it's already happening. The green economy has become part of the mainstream. So it's no surprise that the country is now turning its focus to green trade. What remains to be seen is how these new guidelines will play out in practice and how they might reshape the future of global trade in the process. So I reached out to economics expert Li Lun. He's an assistant professor at the School of Economics at Peking University. Hello, Professor Li.
Hi, thanks for having me.
To start off, can you first give us a brief explanation when it comes to what exactly is green trade and how should we understand it?
Yeah, so I think the plain, word-to-word meaning is, I think, twofold. So green trade both means you're trading green products, for example, EV, solar panels, wind turbines, heat pumps, and batteries, etc. But they also mean, trading basically all goods that's made with greener processes. For example, they're made in a factory with lower carbon emission, or, the supply chain where we can trace the carbon footprint easily, or, they're made with recyclable materials, or, we can basically all products that's made with the greener process, products made by the green economy, and as well as, products made for the green economy. So that's the literal meaning of what green trade would mean. So they're not, simply meaning that we're all buying or selling EV, or buying or selling these solar panels. So I think it definitely includes a lot more. So why it matters for now, I think, is because we're seeing that whether in terms of Chinese export of these green goods are taking a greater and greater market share globally. And in the future, I think China is definitely going to, dominate more in terms of these greener supply chain, whether we're talking about manufacturing or we're talking about, heat generation. We're talking about, basically all the building parts, the building materials for a greener economy. I think China is definitely going to, play a much more important role in those areas as well.
Yeah, since you mentioned about when we are talking about green trade, it also covers, for example, supply chain or basically all the production lines and value chains along the line. And actually, by the Ministry of Commerce, they've also released a new sort of guidelines to expand green trade, where they also highlight support for the areas that you just mentioned. So by launching these new guidelines, what kind of problems or challenges do you think that they're trying to address?
Yeah, so the reason that this is, raised by the Ministry of Commerce, I think it's very important. It shows that, I think, basically emphasizing or mentioning about green trade is beneficial for the market or for the enterprises, the firms in China as well. I think right now, a very key problem of Chinese companies is that they oftentimes enter these excessive, competition, especially in terms of cutting each other's prices. So we're seeing that PPI has been dropping year on year for about a 2 percentage point for a couple of months right now, meaning that the prices for these products when they exit the firm is has been decreasing. So this basically creates a very toxic market structure for firms because we worry about that when firms cut each other's prices, their profitability goes down, and then basically they hesitant or do not pay as much wage or salary to their employees, and this causes further decrease in demand. So from an economist's perspective, that's what I think worries a lot of people. But I think this time by emphasizing green trade, I think it provides another venue or another playground, another set of standards for these firms to compete in. So basically, you can, for example, attract more consumers not just because you set lower prices, but maybe because your products are greener, your products are made with more traceable carbon footprint. I think a very good example, or precedent for this is how organic food in the United States has been introduced, and I think right now firms can choose which path they want to follow, whether they want to improve their quality and produce organic food or organic produce, or they can cut their prices. But I think the market share, especially if you look at the food industry in the States, organic food industry is actually taking a higher and higher market share as well. So I think a similar analogy comes to the green economy here as well. So for products that's made with pollution, made with a lot of carbon emission, I think when consumer buy it, a lot of us will become very hesitant or concerned, rather than we're seeing something that's slightly more expensive, but we know that they are certified with greener standards, they're certified with a certain amount of traceable carbon emission. Then when we buy it, we're happy to pay a little bit more of excess price, even when they're, for example, the same quality or comparable quality with the lower price competitor.
So by expanding and pushing ahead green trade, you're sort of helping companies and firms redirecting their investments and their production into the greener playground, as you mentioned. So in terms of competition, EVs, solar panels are some of the good examples when it comes to over competition. What do you see the future for these already pretty hyped industries right now in terms of clean technology and green industries? After launching this new set of guidelines, what sort of directions will these industries go in the future?
Yeah, so first of all, I think competition is by itself is not a bad thing. So basically, it drives innovation. It makes companies want to become more productive. But we don't want excessive competition, especially just in setting lower prices. Of course, some of the lower prices they reflect better technology, better productivity, more advanced manufacturing techniques. We can make the same car with lower cost. So that's why, for example, car brands like BYD or other Chinese EVs are winning so much market share right now in Europe, because the competitors are easily 1.5 or 1.3 times more expensive, and doesn't cover or doesn't include all the same perks or the same features. So I think competition by itself, it definitely helps reduce the cost. And of course, there's going to be winners and losers in the process. But I think the end result is that domestically we have cheaper products and more variety of products that's available for domestic consumers, and to export to basically to serve the foreign consumers globally. I think this is also going to generate a spillover effect, meaning that our products, our lifestyle basically is going to benefit some of the other countries, other citizens, where they want to purchase, for example, products that's made with greener process, but their own firms or their own manufacturing facilities are unable to do it. So what they can do, they can choose to buy greener by choosing some of the advanced, manufacturing or advanced companies or brands that's made in China. But unfortunately, I think some of the challenges for these industries is that sometimes when people think about Chinese goods, especially in some parts of Europe and maybe America as well, they think of it as still being low price, low quality, and made with a lot of wasteful or polluting, process. So I think the image has not yet changed. But I mean, as Chinese citizens, we can definitely feel that the environment has been improving. We're seeing that these EVs are getting cheaper and cheaper. These hybrids can support you to take longer road trips. We're seeing new car brands or car models that's being introduced every day. But I mean, for foreign consumers, they're not seeing as much, in terms of reputation or in terms of signal, they're not seeing as much of improvement as we are seeing every day. So I think how to make sure that we're transitioning the image for these brands and products, especially for foreign consumers, I think that's going to be pretty challenging. But I think with time, I think it's quite achievable as well.
Yeah, so that's probably the task of publicity for these companies. But when it comes to the guidelines by the Ministry of Commerce this time, they're not only talking about EVs or solar panels or parts for wind power generations. They're also talking about a wide range of industrial or market sectors. In your opinion, which sector or product could hold the greatest potential for China to grow its green trade?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I can't say which sector is going to benefit the most. So I think it definitely goes two ways. So first of all, as we have been mentioned, products that's directly linked to the green economy, like EVs or these, heating ventilation device, or the device that's made to store electricity, batteries, inverters, like other type of electronics that you can use in terms of transmitting electricity in a more efficient way. So I think these building materials is definitely going to benefit a lot, because if other countries want to have a greener facility, pretty much the only option they have is to buy from China. So these sectors definitely going to benefit a lot. But on the other side, I think also from the guideline from the Ministry of Commerce, I think there's a sentence where it says basically to promote a certification from a single product to a single industry to the whole supply chain. So basically, what it means is that, for example, when we're buying some products right now in China, sometimes we will see, this is more environmentally regulated, or it's greener because it satisfies the EU standards. So we sometimes we think that especially in terms of furniture, right? If it's being sold in EU or it satisfies the EU standards, it means it's high quality. So I think in the future, is it possible to kind of have the same certification process for Chinese products as well, and basically have no differences in these standardization? Basically having, for example, the same stamp that's no matter whether you stamp it on domestically sold products or you stamp it on products that's being made to export, they're all the same standards. So, consumers don't have to worry anymore about, buying products that's a little less advanced in terms of or less green as the other, products. Also, I think regulation is very important as well. In order to do that, I think we need to have a more regulated sector as well. So I think go back to your question, like which sector will have the greatest potential? I think those directly linked to the green economy, they're definitely going to benefit. But I think every other sector that's previously relying on a global standards, especially in terms of their carbon emission, the sophistication of their manufacturing process, like how green it is. I think these sectors, they're also going to benefit by a clearer or more transparent, standard, both domestically and globally as well.
I do agree with you when it comes to standardization because I've seen a lot of discussions when it comes to building up China's own standardization, especially in terms of sustainability, carbon footprint systems, so on and so forth. So I'm sensing that by launching these guidelines, the authorities are not trying to sort of focusing on one or two or a couple sectors or products or services. They sort of have a broader goal here, which also reminds us of the new 15th five-year plan that also mentioned expanding green trade and the green transition of the whole of the economy. What's your assessment here? What is the broader goal behind expanding green trade?
What we've been discussing, if to summarize, is we kind of want to transition from products that's made for the green economy to a stage where we're expanding to products made with or made by the green economy. So what I mean is that first we want the products to be made with greener infrastructures, greener facilities, and also with greener or more transparent, standardization or certifications. So when we buy a product, we know it's manufactured with green process, and it's going to, reduce some of the, competition pressures. But I think the broader goal beyond that is it's also related to what China has been, I think, doing right in terms of, for example, building the EV industry or building the solar panel or the wind power, all of these greener ways to generate power. So I think what China has been doing right is that, so from the beginning, going green is not just the moral thing to do. It's also regulation or by, investments from the government, from the fiscal policies. We make going green also the cheaper, more profitable thing to do. So a very good example for that is EV. So when people realize that driving these EV cars are actually pretty convenient and they're pretty cheap, much cheaper than, filling a tank of gas, then comes the point of, people convert to EV in a very mass scale. So going to solar power or wind power, it's the same. For provinces, for example, in the Western provinces that are previously pretty insufficient of the natural resources that's required to generate power. Now they realize, we have plenty of wind here, or we have plenty of sunshine here, and we can have a power plant built, in the middle of the desert, which cannot participate in the production sector one way or another. But right now we can have a power plant in the middle of nowhere. So I think this transform, how you understand China's different geographical locations and also, the inequality between, provinces as well. So in the future, I think products, sometimes when you think about products, some provinces may be more efficient in making the products. They may not be the provinces or the regions that can make them the greenest. So I think this is also going to generate some, differences, some, spectrum for people to select instead of, just comparing the lowest price or just making sure or having the industry just for, concentrating in one area and not benefiting the other. So I think when you think about EV or think about the, power generating with the wind or solar panels, I think those you're definitely going to feel more sensible about the new regulations as well.
Going green will be the cheaper thing to do, and which is basically the main driver of a lot of, for example, climate actions that environmentalists and also international agencies are calling for decades. And that also, I think, remind me of the new quality productive force, 新质生产力, that a lot of the governmental documents been mentioning, which is also one of the themes of the next 5 years plan. So how would you evaluate the level of green in the new quality productive force?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be probably not the main driving force, but it's going to be a very important feature in a lot of the new productive driving forces. So, for example, I think one example I can give you is that we used to spend a lot of computing power when we need to render these gaming or movie scenes, for example, in animation. And the previous way to do it is basically to build a computing center next to the company. For example, if the company is in Shanghai or Hangzhou, then you basically rely on computing center that's nearby to basically do the computing for them. But this requires a lot more cost or energy consumption than if you build it somewhere else. For example, right now we're building a lot of computing centers in the western provinces. So basically, because some of the electricities that's being generated is nearby, they can be, for example, put directly into these computing centers, and they can satisfy the computing needs of the eastern provinces. So in Chinese, it's called 东数西算 or
East data, West computing.
yes, yes, yes. So the western, regions are satisfying the computing needs of the eastern regions. So I think this, you could call it, new quality productive forces because it satisfies the computing power of the eastern provinces, allowing them to do fancier or to more productive animations, as in my example, but also in other sectors as well. For example, training your AI models or training your robots as well. So, but the computing power is created with these green powers. So I think this is a good example of how these greener facilities can facilitate or enhance the sectors that's, for example, in advanced manufacturing, AI, that we traditionally think are part of the new quality productive forces. Also, I'd like to mention that innovation in, for example, power storage, in power grid, also in terms of batteries, they themselves are very important, especially in the future. So how do we preserve these power? How do we kind of make sure that they're not lost in transition? And also having a national unified market for electricity so that, for example, we have seen previously in the United States where in Texas, when there is whether an earthquake or a storm, then you see the power grid basically goes black, and the other states cannot easily transmit power to Texas because they have different power grids and they have different systems. So right now, how do we make sure that we have a unified and smart system to balance out these electricity needs and to make sure that all the industries and households that need electricity can be supplied with electricity timely and cheap fashion? I think that's also very, very important. It's as important as some of the other things that we talked about earlier in the show.
Yeah, exactly. And that requires a lot of coordination, testing, experimenting along the line. But I do also want to check with you on the international implication. When China wants to expand its green trade, China is one of the largest trading partners for a lot of countries around the world. So when China is going green in its foreign trade, what does that mean for its trading partners?
First of all, it definitely offers much more choices to the global consumers. So right now, I think we can't really avoid EV when we're talking about export or spillover effect of China's green economy. So basically, it's pretty difficult for these countries or these regions to manufacture a EV from scratch. But I mean, you can import with pretty low cost to your own country and make sure that your citizen can enjoy the same technology as China's citizens have been enjoying. So I think with these type of new quality goods and also wider choices, this is the most direct way of how one country's technology can benefit another country, basically by providing unique or more variety of products at a cheaper price. But also, I think in terms of globally, China has previously been a very large polluter, let's say, in terms of carbon emission, in terms of emission of gas or water or polluting the soil. Well, that's a long time ago. China had been a very important polluter or a large polluter globally. But right now, with China being going greener, I think it's basically taking making sure that what China had been doing, especially during the process that we're building our modern industry, that we're kind of growing our GDP, there were some damage to the environment, making sure that these damages are, reversed and even improved. We're seeing, for example, in a lot of Chinese cities, the river has become much better. The air quality, especially this year, has improved quite significantly. So as we're seeing those, if you measure from a global perspective, it's definitely also going to be very important as well. And finally, I think a common misunderstanding about lifestyle is that China can't support the same lifestyle as United States is able to. If all of Chinese citizens live a lifestyle that's as wasteful, quote unquote, as citizens of the United States, then imagine, how much carbon emission there's going to be, how much, fossil fuel they're going to burn. But right now, with greener economy, with these EVs, it actually provides us a new picture because virtually for each household, we can be, carbon neutral. So each household is on net not producing any carbon because, for example, they're driving an EV, they're living a green, lifestyle. They're making sure that, their house is heated and also, insulated. So they're not spending too much on energy costs. So if each household can reach such a carbon neutral way of living, then maybe from an environmental perspective, the argument that we can't go the lifestyle of developed countries, at least not the entire population of China, I think that claim could be easily debunked.
That's very interesting. I do look forward to that kind of lifestyle in the future. Probably become the game changer for a lot of international community to think life as a different way that they never think of before.
Of course, it also, pictures a brighter future for these developing countries as well. So if China can do it with lower cost, with, greener process, with, greener way of living, and also more prosperous way of living, why can't we do the same? Why can't we basically just copy whatever, China has been doing by, using the same infrastructure and same products? I think it's definitely going to be much easier to implement than, the wasteful, unsustainable other way of living by the other developed countries.
Yeah, that's a bright future. Thank you, Professor Li Lun. Thank you very much for today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
China's push for green trade reflects a bigger shift, where climate action and economic competitiveness start to merge. Whether through new supply chains, green finance, or partners built on cleaner technologies, the rules of global trade are beginning to change. As these policies take shape, we'll be watching how China and its trading partners turn ambition into real progress, because the path to a greener economy may well run through trade itself. A big thank you to Li Lun with Peking University. And thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a quick review, or share it with a friend. And if you have any questions about our planet or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach me at fei.fei@cgtn.com or find me on my Substack newsletter, Rivers and Mountains. Until next time.